Well, hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Your Blank What Now podcast. My name is Marcy Nettles, and I am your host. And I am so excited to be bringing you an episode today where I am actually live in the same location with my guest. We're not on Zoom today, and that just will bring a whole new energy for each one of you. I absolutely love this show, and I love the What Now tribe. I love being able to bring you a different story each week that will share with you the opportunity that you have when you're in breakdown. Because I truly believe in a breakdown situation, you have the opportunity to make a choice to either stay where you're at or to do something different to be able to break through out of that darkness. And every week, I love bringing a new guest in that has a significant story that they share with you. And by the way, I ask them to be very vulnerable in sharing their stories because I know that if you can see yourself in any part of their story, you'll also be able to see yourself in the breakthrough that each one of them has. And today, my guest is no different. She is amazing. And I've only known her for a few weeks, and yet I got her to come to my house, guys. I'm really excited about that. But Roxane Vermeland is my guest today, and she is a 60-year-old woman who has been married for 25 years. She is the mother of one daughter and grandmother to three granddaughters. Being a grandma is absolutely the best thing ever, I think. She grew up in Illinois, where she worked at Rush Copley Medical Center as a center secretary in the float pool for almost 20 years. Roxane moved to Verrado, Arizona in September of 2020 after being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer to make a change and to be happy again. So I am so excited and just honored to be able to welcome Roxane to the show. And just to kick it off, Roxane, would you mind, first of all, just saying hi to the What Now tribe and just sharing a little bit about who Roxane was before 2012? What was life like for you?
Hi, Marcy, and thank you so much for having me on today. I'm very excited to be here. And
Awesome.
before I was diagnosed in 2012, I was working full time and I had my daughter in 1980, who I absolutely adore. And I met my wonderful husband in 1997, and we're married in Maui. And he taught me how to golf as he is an avid golfer. And it was either take up golf or not see my husband.
Oh, that's
Uh,
funny. That's awesome.
so um, it was great being able to learn that sport. And while I was um, enjoying life, I was reading a lot and taking lessons to golf and actually making a lot of friends on the golf course. My daughter became pregnant with our first grandchild, Macy. And then I was diagnosed. She was born in, going to be born in May of 2013. And I was diagnosed in November of 2012.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Just the news of becoming a grandma,
Yes.
that is such a high.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that we look forward to. I mean, it's the reason why we let our kids live, right? So
Hmm.
they're going to make us grandparents.
Yes.
But to shortly after that announcement, have your diagnosis also come into play. What was it like when you were first diagnosed with bilateral breast cancer in November of 2012, is what you said, I believe.
Mhm.
And how did your treatment progress?
It was actually devastating. My insurance was, we found out that Craig's insurance was switching from an HMO to Blue Cross. This company was being bought out. And so I called to get in for a mammogram right away because I was due. And so I went on Halloween for the mammogram and they found something on there. And so they set me up for a biopsy and he had to go out of town and after the biopsy and I got my results while he was at his meeting at work, and it was devastating to find out that it was cancer.
Yeah.
And So he flew home to be with me, and uh, they told me that the best option was mastectomies. At the time, I didn't know I had bilateral breast cancer, and they didn't know until they went in to do the mastectomies in December of 2012 that I had bilateral mastectomies. And
And bilateral basically means both sides.
both sides.
Yes. Just for
Yes.
the audience. Yeah.
Yes, both sides had cancer. And so they had set me up right away. I had agreed to the bilateral mastectomies, and right away they pushed me to a plastic surgeon because that was just a process, an oncologist and a plastic surgeon. And the plastic surgeon, really didn't give me any options except breast implants, and didn't inform me that I could get any cancers. Craig had asked, can we get any cancers or anything from the breast implants? He said, absolutely not. They're totally safe. The only thing that you can get is um, the risk of anesthesia, of being put under,
Right.
and everything will be fine. You're in the best hands with me.
Right. And so that's like a common thing, right? With the
Mhm.
surgeons, it's like, okay, well, you want to be normal, right? And so you got to have boobs,
Yeah.
right? And so you had yours removed because of the cancer. So in their minds, that's the next thing that you have
Yeah,
to
it's
do.
just it was an automatic thing. And I had worked with this plastic surgeon for 20 years because he worked at the hospital I was in. So I knew him very well. And uh, so I trusted him, everything he said. And he told me he'd make me beautiful with, the breast implants, of course. And I wouldn't want to go any other way. So I listened to him.
Right.
And so after I had the bilateral mastectomies, which they put in a nerve block. I was one of their experimental patients because I knew all the doctors and the residents at the hospital. One of them had asked me if I would be their experimental patient to put in a new pain block in for the mastectomies. So I said, sure. And uh, I had to be put to sleep for my sentinel node for them the day of the surgery. They put me in twilight for that because I'm scared to death of needles. Then they gave me more drugs for this pain that they were putting in. Then I was so out of it by the time I went to surgery. I didn't even know what was happening. And here I am in the chair right before I went and got any of this done, saying, smiling, oh, say goodbye to my boobs. I was all positive about it. And, I was scared inside, but for my family, I was being positive. And I woke up and it was terrifying. I was on so many drugs. It took me forever to come off those drugs. I was in the hospital on a Friday and I wasn't even up in a chair until Monday.
Yeah, I don't think enough people talk about the after effects of the drugs that are used during surgery. I've had that same experience, and it can go on for years and years.
It was horrifying. I mean, my husband had to stay with me the entire time I was there because he helped me do everything because I just literally, my mind wasn't there. It was painful, even though I had the pain block to move. And just back in the day, things were totally different than what they are now.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. So you had your double mastectomy,
Mm-hmm.
and that was in December of 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And then in October of 2013 is when you had your first set of breast implants placed, correct?
Well, I had to go through 6 months of harsh chemo first.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the chemo, I cried every time I had to go get the chemotherapy because I lost my hair within a month of starting that, and um, was deathly ill with the chemotherapy. So I finished that at the end of May, and you have to wait 3 months for your breast implants, even though they put the expanders in you during your mastectomy. You go and get your implants put in, you can have your implants put in 3 months later. So I went in to get those started to be filled in October of 2013.
Okay. And how did that first set go for you?
The first set went terrible. I went back into surgery at least 3 more times because one side would be up higher than the other. It was a huge gap. He could never get them to stay in place. They were Mentor Smooth implants. And finally, in April of 2014, I said, I'm done. I don't want any more. I'm just going to go flat. And he said, no, we have these new state of the art implants called Allergan that just came out. Little did I know they didn't just come out. And, you can, I said, what's so great about it? He says, they're teardrop. They're just like regular breasts. They stay in place. They're textured. And Craig said, can they cause cancer? And he said, no. And you can't even, can't even cut these with a knife, and he threw them on the floor, and they don't leak anything. And so in April 2014, I had him put in the Allergan textured implants, the 410. And in 2017, I did have him put some more fat grafting in. Then I had him do the tattoos on the breast implants.
And that was for the nipples, right?
nipples.
Because when you have a mastectomy done, they take everything.
They take everything.
Yes, yes. Okay. And in the tattooing for the nipples, I actually, I've known someone that does that as their profession. And it's because she also had a mastectomy and she didn't have nipples and she wanted to feel normal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So having those tattoos done helps people feel normal.
Yeah. It did. Yeah. So I went, in 2017, I did have fluid buildup in one of my breasts, and they just drained it and, told me, it was nothing, and sent me home. And then in 2018, my left breast implant filled up like the size, huge, like double the size of my right one. So right before I went to bed, I saw this. And so I was researching on the internet, and it was called this breast implant associated anaplastic large cell lymphoma. This is what it could be. And so, of course, I'm freaking out that I've got another cancer. And so we got up the next morning and called the plastic surgeon, and they got us in right away. And I walked in there, and he said, you look fine. There's nothing wrong with you.
Even though you had one side that was like twice the size of the other.
And I was like, no, the pressure is so bad. It feels like I'm going to explode right now. And it's very painful. And he said, no. And I go, what about this, breast implant associated anaplastic large cell lymphoma? And he said, you don't have that. That's so rare. Nobody gets that. And I said, he said, let me just see if I can flip that implant over while we're in the office. And I said, well, is it going to hurt? And he says, no, we're just going to flip it over. So he had me stand up, and he tried to flip it, and I screamed in excruciating pain because little did I know a textured implant adheres to you, and he should have known better to try to flip that. I mean, there's no way it was flipping. It was all, adhered in there.
Right.
It's not a smooth implant. So I said, can you please order the MRI? I want to know if I have this, if there's a seroma or, the symptoms. I have the symptoms. You have it, but, you can have the MRI, but I know you don't have it. Then he was walking out the door, and I said, well, is insurance going to cover this, for a new set of implants? Because I was just thinking, maybe I need a new set of implants, or the MRI or the surgery. I was worried about the money because cancer bills add up.
Yes.
And he's like, looked at me funny. And he's like, well, yeah, you had breast cancer. Why wouldn't it pay? So you're covered. You have nothing to worry about. So I was like, okay.
So up until, oh my gosh, up until this conversation, and when the one breast swole up so much more than the others, were you having other symptoms? What were the symptoms that you were experiencing before going in for this doctor's appointment?
Well, I had a rash for at least 2 years, and I mean, it was uncontrollable itching in my breast area. And I would scratch and until I couldn't stand it. And I went to dermatologists, oncologists, primary cares, and none of them knew what to do. They're like, oh, it's just because of the mastectomy, your skin is so thin, but don't put some hydrocortisone cream on there, but don't put too much on, it's fine, it's not, take some Benadryl. And I'm like, okay. And little did I know that was a symptom. Plus, I was super tired all the time and I was depressed. Um, and I was just thinking it was the breast cancer and the anxiety, from everything going on. And little did I know I had this other
Right.
cancer the whole time.
Right. And so the doctor sent you for the
Yeah.
MRI and
Yep. They did an ultrasound first because insurance wouldn't pay unless I did an ultrasound first. It showed the fluid in a seroma, so the MRI confirmed it. So the following, 3 days later, I had a drain put in, and I had asked my plastic surgeon when he ordered the drain to be put in, to have these tests run, the CD30 testing done, a special procedure to test for this BIALCL cancer, breast implant associated.
yes.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
BIAALCL is easiest, and that's what we
yes,
will refer to it as from now
yeah,
on
it's
in this
all long,
show.
yeah. And um, he said, the doctor said he was putting in the order. So, and I, once again, needed to be put to sleep, in twilight for the drains to be put in, and have this tested, aspirated, the fluid aspirated to be tested. So I asked the radiologist when I got in there on the table before they were ready to put me out if he had the orders for CD30 testing. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, this is a cancer that I'm getting tested for. Can you call the plastic surgeon? And because he had never heard of it. So he pulled out his cell phone and he called the plastic surgeon and he got the orders. And then I went to sleep. And when I woke up, I went home with drains. And then a week later, I got my drains out and I still hadn't got my results yet from that. And little did I know they had to send them to Mayo to get those tests done because Rush Copley it came back positive for them, but they wanted a second opinion. But I wasn't told this. So I went and had the drains taken out. And then I also got a second opinion at Northwestern in case something was, I did get tested positive because nobody seemed to know anything about this cancer in Illinois. And um, the next morning I woke up after the drains got out and I wasn't feeling well. I was going to see my granddaughters in Wisconsin and I was getting everything ready to go. And I just went upstairs to lay down and I got sicker and sicker and sicker. I called Craig home on my um, Apple Watch because I couldn't reach my phone. And he rushed home and then he called plastic surgeon. He said, oh, you got the flu, call your primary. It's nothing I can do. The primary said, this is your plastic surgeon's being ridiculous. You just got a drain put in and taken out. It's got to be an infection. You call him back. So he finally calls back at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and says, go to your urgent care, which is attached to a hospital, or an outpatient care that's attached to like an emergency care, and have them draw some blood. And so I could barely even get in there. And the girl at the counter said, honey, you don't need blood work. You need to be wheeled down to the ER. Little did that girl know she saved my life. She wheeled me down there and they took me right back and started an IV and then drew blood and then came back not even 20 minutes later. And another IV started in my neck with, 8 bags of IV fluid put in just to transfer me over to the hospital, the regular hospital, because I was in septic shock dying. And here I am in the ambulance, recording for my grandchildren, thinking this is, not knowing how serious it was because IV fluids were making me feel a little better, but they were setting up, everything for when I arrived at the hospital to put in a central line to get me into surgery to do emergency surgery to remove the implant. When we got there, the doctor was called in and the plastic surgeon to do the surgery. And Craig had asked him prior to me being wheeled in if he would remove both implants and the capsules, because if you cut into the capsules, this kind of cancer spreads if I have it. And he told Craig that I may be the first patient, he has that has this cancer. And he'll try, but there's no, he'll do his best. And he's like, well, can't you just do this for X? He's known me forever. Just take them both out. Well, I woke up in the ICU intensive care, and the first thing I asked was, did he remove both implants and capsules? And they said no. He said he sampled my capsules, took 4 samples, and didn't even mark the samples and where he even took them from, and sent them off. So I just started sobbing, like I knew, because I had already had breast cancer. This cancer is just going to spread all over my body. And he said he had to do it because my blood pressure, was so low in surgery that he just had to sample it. Well, little did I know he didn't even know how to do a capsulectomy. That's why he didn't do it, because other patients had went to him. So then I was in there for a week, and then I went from there to Mayo because my plastic surgeon said go on vacation while I was in ICU and didn't tell me. And I had to get results from a, covering doctor that was just a rounding physician doctor. And she told me, that it came back positive. So then I needed to go to Mayo, who had at the time 6 patients diagnosed with this. And so we went there, and then they did a PET scan that showed positive for my mammary nodes lighting up, which are underneath my ribs. So she's going to have to cut part of my ribs, and the other one lighting up, breast implant lighting up around that area, and more fluid. So they did emergency surgery there a week later on me. And that was a false positive on that one because they said it came back negative for those. And
But they removed the second implant then,
yes,
though, right?
and the mammary nodes and part of my ribs.
Okay.
But because if you get a PET scan too soon after surgery, then it can read false positives. So that's what happened with me. So then 3 months went by, and I had a recurrence, and I had to get a PET scan every 3 months because of this cancer. You get a PET scan every 3 months, and they are no fun. PET scans are scary as hell. My first one, when they tell you have to have a PET scan, you think you're dying. It's the end of the world. You're sitting in that chair wondering, are you going to be told you have 6 weeks to live? 9 weeks. It's that first PET scan was the scariest thing I ever had in my life.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. I mean, you're already, seriously having to fight for yourself because you've had already your surgeon tell you, you look fine. In other words, everything's in your head, right? And then he didn't do what you had asked him to do in the surgery. And so and coming up in his ignorance that he didn't even know what he should have done, that put you into a situation to where you did become septic, and then telling you it was the flu. I mean, you have so many experiences to where you had the ability to just really build up a non-trust for the medical providers that you were having.
Yes. The only one of my medical providers that helped me through all of this cancer was my primary care. Dr. Jennifer Crane, I give her so much credit because she was my biggest helper. She did everything I needed. And every time I had a problem, I could go to her. She'd fit me right in. She found out if I had a reoccurrence. She found out if I had a lymph node. She'd order the test right away. She was on top of everything for me. Just the best physician in the whole wide world. If I didn't have her, I don't know if I'd even be here today.
Oh, thank goodness for angels walking this earth, right? Yeah, absolutely. Well, we decided to name your episode you're your own breast implant cancer advocate. What now? And your story, you've already shown to where you had to fight for things, where you had to question your doctors and you had to tell them, it's like, no, that's not right. And do
Mhm.
your own research. And that was on your personal level. After you had the explant done and went through all of the different, this surgery that didn't even necessarily have to happen because of the false positives, right?
Mhm.
You really started advocating for yourself but also for the world on a
Mhm.
big way in 2019. You went in front of the FDA with a
Yeah.
group of women for the very first time for the hearing on breast implants. Can you share with us what the result of that hearing was?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, baby. Victory.
It was a huge victory for all of us. There were 70 of us that went and 20 of us that were able to speak in front of the FDA. And I was one of them that was picked to speak. And the Allergan implants, textured implants, were recalled in July of 2019. And I was on the phone with them the morning of um when they told us the FDA had a call with a bunch of us and said, "We are recalling the implants." It was the best news I had ever had.
Oh, that is
It was a
amazing.
huge accomplishment. And we just it was worth, you know, flying. Like, I didn't know any of these women. I was just invited to go by some girls that were diagnosed and heard about, that I was diagnosed. And I went there and met wonderful, just so many wonderful women and just suffering and frail. And I felt so bad for them listening to their stories in front of the FDA. And you just, some of them are just teardroppers. I was just couldn't believe what had happened because this was all so new to me. And then with my story at the time, I was so upset because of what they had done to me. And I didn't even know anything. So I was very to keep going and to hear that those got recalled and we did a major accomplishment. I mean, I cut my vacation short with my granddaughters to go there and to fly from Puerto Vallarta to there. And I could have never been more happier that I did that to make that
Right.
to be a part of that.
To be on the right side of history,
Yes, to be in
right?
part of history. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so
Huge. Huge.
massive. I mean,
Yeah.
was this really when you realized the extent of breast implant illness and the dangers of breast implants?
Oh, yeah. Because I just thought, oh, there's not that many people diagnosed with what I have. And so I'm thinking, I didn't know about the breast implant illness as much as I did my own cancer, because I had been researching on my own because none of my physicians had any answers whatsoever because they didn't have any patients with them. So I was learning it all on my own until I went to MD Anderson and their docs actually explained to me, I mean, in detail, exactly what I had. And in December of 2018, it was when I consulted with them. I'm like, oh my God, this is the first time I've even, have been able to understand my cancer, what I have. Because they explained to me in detail uh, and I don't know how to say it in a patient's way of listen, so I could listen to them and understand as a patient, not like a dictionary, a doctor, or anything.
Yeah,
But
using common language.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, I was so excited when I left their office.
It's like they cared enough for you to be able to
Hmm.
understand, not just to make them look important. Because I truly feel that that's what um, the big doctor speak
Yes.
does for a doctor is it makes them feel important, but their patients
Hmm.
can't understand any of it.
Exactly.
Right. And you being the patient, again, 2019 was a pivotal year for you. Not only did just before 2019, you got connected with MD Anderson and the
Hmm.
doctors there that really became your support,
Yes.
right? You were part of that FDA panel that
Hmm.
just made change happen, which is so awesome. But you had a lot of things happen with your treatment, with your faith in doctors,
Mhm.
And also in your personal life, can you share with the What Now Tribe, really kind of what 2019 held for you?
2019 was very hard for me. It took a toll on me actually because I kept going in for biopsies in and out. Some were positive, which I did have the choice of cryoablation where they burn the node out, so I could forego treatment, which I did do, for one. And then it's always watch and wait with this cancer. Watch and wait. What happens? Oh, it's inconclusive, the biopsy. Let's watch and wait. Oh, it doesn't look, it could be from the cryo, but let's watch and wait. It's always watch and wait. And so I'd be going constantly for these 3-month PET scans. They'd see something, but they say, you know what, let's just watch and wait. And July I had node light up. They did a biopsy and it showed some CD20 cells on it. And it looked like to me, because I always researched everything and worked in hospitals, so I'm very aware of how things work. And it looked like I had B cell lymphoma. And I kept questioning the doctors, and I'm just like, look, they're like, you're fine, you're in remission. And I call the Mayo doctors, I call MDM, and I was like, no, I don't feel like I'm in remission. I have a node and it's showing things, all these different labs, and they're getting mad at me because I keep calling back and asking about, you know, the nodes. And it's like a July hot day and I'm sitting out. We had a built-in pool and I was sitting out at our patio table and I'm just, you know, keep calling them. And then the one doctor calls me back and says, you need to quit calling and bothering the doctors with this. You're fine. You need to take it as what it is. You're in remission and start enjoying life. So then I hung up, I called my daughter and I'm really upset. And I'm telling her, they're trying to tell me I'm in remission. And, I know I'm not. I know something's wrong. I researched the labs. They're not good labs and da da da. Like, Mom, would you just stop? Get off Facebook. You need to get off that Facebook and listen to those doctors and move on with your life. Because at the time, I had been advocating so much for everyone, helping all these women, nonstop that are sick and trying to, nonstop. I mean, I was on day and night, but I didn't want this to happen to one more person. And I'm like, seriously? She's like, you need to move on. You're cured. And I was very upset with her. But I was like, you know what? Fine. I didn't, you know, want to have her mad at me. So I was like, all right. So I started golfing again, started, live my life normal. But I had sat at that table after I hung up from her and just sobbed. And I felt like I went into a deep depression, probably for about 4 hours before I called my husband home from work and said, you need to come home. I don't know what's going to happen here, but I can't get out of this depression and I need to go see the psychologist. I had a psychologist from breast cancer. Right. And I go, I need to go see her really bad because I don't know if I can come out of this right now. And which she helped me tremendously. And so that was a hard time for me.
Yeah, well, of course it would be. I mean, well, and first of all, it's like, well, what cancer patient wouldn't want to be told they were in remission, that they were
Yeah.
cured, right?
Most patients are so happy about that news.
But you know what, though? I think that is sometimes the lulling in the calm before the storm. That
Mhm.
if people just accept that and don't listen to their intuition, because that's what you had that internal messaging
Mhm.
telling you that there was still something wrong, because there was still something wrong, right?
Yeah, come November, I had my 3-month PET scan, and it was right after I'd went to Rome. There was a first world conference in Rome, on BIALCL, and I did a GoFundMe page so I could go learn about my cancer because no doctors knew about it. MD Anderson had about 60 patients, and Mayo only had 6. So I said, "Oh my God, they're having this first conference worldwide with all these scientists, physicians, all these well-known, pathologists, and I'm going to learn about my cancer." So it was going to cost me like almost $300,000 to go there. So I went by myself, raised the money. Thank God for friends, family, people I didn't even know, all these BII groups, breast implant illness groups, all pitched in to help me go learn about my cancer. So I went to Rome, I learned about a treatment, how to cure my cancer. I come back from Rome, have my PET scan, and lo and behold, I'm told that my cancer is um spread everywhere. It's in my nodes, it's in my spread all through my mammary nodes, all on my clavicles, and it's spread to my lungs, and I'm stage 4 now.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just blown away. And I said, and they're like, okay, so the Mayo doctor is telling me you need CHOP, which is a form of chemo, the worst you can get, plus add brentuximab, plus add, this other chemo, like 7 chemos and 7 different chemos, plus
Wow.
radiation. And I'm getting my nails done. And it's funny because he put that in his notes. Patient was getting her nails done when I gave her the news. And I'm just like, really? But took the news well. Well, how else could I take the news? It's a room full of people, you know? And so I said, yeah, I think I better get another go back to MD Anderson and get another consultant. He's like, yeah, that's probably best to do that. So I went to MD Anderson. I called and I said, if you promise me you won't do CHOP and these other chemos, and radiation, then I'll come out to you, fly out to you again in Houston. And they said, yeah, we'll talk to you, Roxane. Yes, fly out here, next week. So I got out there, and they said, you need the CHOP, you need the brentuximab, you need the radiation. And I go, I didn't come here for that. I could have just stayed back at home. I just went to Rome and learned of brentuximab only has cured. And these other women have done your CHOP, done your radiation, and last thing they gave them was brentuximab because the others didn't work. You only need brentuximab to cure. And they're like, oh, well, I'm going to call my doctor in New York. I'm going to take your case in front of the tumor board and tell them, what you've learned, and we'll see what they say. And I go, all right, that's fair. I go, do it, but because I'm not doing that. He goes, but just think, and he pats me on the leg. If we don't cure you with all this, we've always got the stem cell therapy, but right now, as it's looking, you only have 1 year to live. And I am just like shocked. At that point, I started sobbing and I said, well, I'm definitely not doing all those treatments of chemo. You're telling me 1 year to live. I will do brentuximab only. So you're going to have to talk to your tumor board and call whoever you want, but it's not happening. If I have 1 year to live, forget it.
Right. I mean, that's the thing that people don't understand is that the chemo most of the time does not take care of the cancer, but it does end up taking care of what your quality of life can be for the rest of the life that you have.
Oh, and I was miserable during the breast cancer treatment. I was so sick. I was down to like 125 pounds. I mean, which is probably good for most people. But I was deathly sick during chemotherapy, and I didn't ever want to go through that again. So I got a call back about 5 days later after I got home, and I was sitting at the breakfast bar, and my doctor from MD said, Roxane, I have some good news for you. Do. Yes. Talk to the tumor board, talk to everyone, and they've agreed to just do brentuximab treatment for you. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is fantastic. And he said, all right, so you'll start, I'm going to put in orders with your oncologist. I'm going to call her right now. And he did. He picked up the phone and called her right now because I called to set it up and he was talking to her. That's how great MD Anderson is. And I said, okay. And he said, we'll see how this works. And we're going to go with it. We're going to go with what you're telling us. And I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. But then I sat the phone down. I'm thinking, I hope I'm right. You wonder, am I making the right decision? But after seeing everybody else get that as a last thing because nothing else worked, you got to give it, take a chance because you're not losing your hair. You're not, you're going to get sick, but you're not going to get sick anything like it is with those other chemos and radiation. Well, by the third one, after the fourth one, I had my PET scan. It showed half of my cancer gone.
Oh.
And by the seventh one, it showed I was in complete remission.
And that
So,
is that right there. And inside of you, did you feel that? Did you know that to be true?
oh yeah,
This
it
time it
was.
resonated down into your gut,
Oh,
right?
I was like, oh my god. They go, yeah, Rex, we're gonna write up a story on our website about you. And he goes, will you agree for pictures and an interview? And I go, oh yeah, definitely.
How amazing is that though that MD Anderson recognized you as being your own advocate,
Mm-hmm.
pushing for this single treatment
Yep.
that you had learned that it was you being used in other places around the
Around
world
the world.
successfully,
Mm-hmm.
and it worked.
Yeah.
And they wanted to get it out there on their website. I think that speaks volumes for MD Anderson as
Mm-hmm.
well, is that they were willing to put this out there so that other patients could see it and advocate for it for themselves.
Yep. And they are willing to work with their patients.
That is so good. That is so good. So what does your now that you are in remission,
Yeah.
what does your ongoing evaluation process look like?
Well, I just switched to 6 months, PET scans. And I actually had a bad fall a month ago where I fractured some ribs walking the dog. I just tripped over something accidentally and I had a CT scan and it showed some nodes light up, unfortunately, on a PET scan, or on a CT scan. And so the ER doctor, I was all by myself. Craig was golfing. And he walked in the room and says, well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but, I must tell you, I think your cancer is back. And I just started crying. I'm like, because my doctor said if it's going to come back, it's going to come back in 2 years. And it's been exactly 2 years. And I started crying. I'm like, seriously, why do you think that? And he's like, because I see 2 nodules in your lung now. And said, really? And he goes, yeah, I'm so sorry. And then he must have been a new doctor because I was really shocked that he told me. And he actually held my hand for like a half an hour and just let me cry. And he said, I'm going to set you up with see your doctor. I'm going to have you, recommend a pulmonologist so he can verify everything. And I was pretty lost at that time. Kind of went into a little bit of a depression again because you don't know. I couldn't really talk to anybody for a while. And I did just see the pulmonologist and he's not sure what to think. He drew some foreign labs. It takes 3 weeks. So I'm waiting for those results. And depending on what those come back, I need to get a bronchial lavage. MD Anderson wants to do a bronchial lavage, where they fill your lungs up with a lot of water and take biopsies. So we'll find out. It's a little scary right now for me.
Yeah. Scary for you. And yet you're still sitting here with me sharing your story because it's so important for you to be able to help advocate and bring awareness for other women. So I want to commend you for that. You should be so proud of yourself for doing something that most people won't do, and that is putting other people before themselves in situations like this. So, I mean, you are doing such great, great work. And that's part of the reason why we're putting such a great focus on the breast implant associated cancers and breast implant illness is because there's so many other women out there that are ignorant. They
They are.
do not know what could potentially be going on with them or what could be happening inside of their body. And you've been very open and vocal with your story. You have been advocating to anyone and everyone that will listen. Can you share a little bit more about what you're doing? And you know what? You're doing the best thing for yourself right now, too, by putting the focus on other people and serving other people. Because by focusing on gratitude and service to others, you get more gratitude and you get more serviceability, right? If you weren't doing this, you'd only have one thing to focus on, and that would be yourself and what the problems are, and then that would grow.
Mhm.
So you focusing on your advocacy and helping other women will be a payback in the long run for yourself as well. But what are you doing now? How are you involved, and how are you helping bring awareness for other women and for men that love women?
Yeah.
Because it's a family affair.
It's a family
It's a
affair.
community affair. It's not just the woman.
It's not just the woman. And I just try to tell men to love them for, who they are. You hear so many men leaving their wives because they just can't handle it. And it just infuriates me because it's supposed to be, love in sickness and in health. And to hear how some of these women are treated, um, it just makes me so mad. The people that I've been helping recently, that's one of the first questions I ask. How is your support system? Because I'm not going to lie, it's intense and you really need, um, support because, when they tell you you're cured or you're in remission, your family thinks you're cured and they don't want to think there's anything wrong with you. So it's very hard to live each day when when you feel like there's something wrong and they tell you to stop, you know, if you quit focusing on it, then you quit thinking about the cancer and think you have it. But really, the only thing that helps you is by helping the other people on, that need that help because it's, it helps me by helping them. And right now, there's so much going on with the plastic surgeons that are trying to make things worse. And like, they don't want to remove the capsules and test these people. They still don't know about this cancer. They're acting like they don't know it, telling people with smooth implants that can't get the cancer when they are getting the cancer now. One person I know I'm helping like 3 women right now. One's diagnosed that's having a reoccurrence she's having a reoccurrence and her doctor plastic surgeon didn't even tell her about the recall when she was diagnosed. She just found out last week from me that her implants were recalled. And her surgeons and her doctor have no idea what to even do, how to treat her with a reoccurrence. And it's less than a year. And the plastic surgeons or all these people are saying, oh, you can't get it, up to 10 years later. You're pretty much cured when we get the capsules. No, there is no evidence that you're cured after you get this cancer. You can get it over and over again. There's so many women out there re-diagnosed, and it's not, it could be 2 years from now, it can be 6 months from now, can be 7 years from now. And problem is plastic surgeons don't want to know about this cancer because their implants are being taken away and that's their money.
Right.
So the person I'm helping 3 women right now, all diagnosed, because the one woman, I just actually got her into MD Anderson. She's going to go at the end of the month with my doctor. And they wanted to treat her doctor was going to treat her with radiation, which really causes our inflammation. Our cancer feeds on inflammation. So you don't want to put radiation. Like when I had a consult with the radiation doctor at MD Anderson, they said, stay away from radiation. We don't want you doing that. Like when I was getting my cryoablation, they said, absolutely not. Anything will affect that, will make your cancer spread. So I told this girl, get into MD Anderson, see if you can get the brentuximab like I did. So she's actually got in. Thank God my doctor could see her because he's not taking patients anymore, but he's doing it. And she's asking for brentuximab. Another one has smooth implants, went to her plastic surgeon, she said, and because she has 2 masses around her implants, they said, there's no way you can have this cancer. That cancer, you can only get it with textured implants. Well, yes, patients are getting the cancer with the implants right now and with smooth implants. But because that plastic surgeon's been told, you can only get this cancer, if she wouldn't have contacted me, she wouldn't even be getting tested for this cancer. Right. I've walked her through the whole thing. She's getting her, and they sent her to radiology to get the test done, which that plastic surgeon or her doctor should have known couldn't do a biopsy of a mass, for Christ's sake. They are taking her to, now she's scheduled for surgery to have the biopsy done of her mass. And that doctor, surgeon, flat out looked at her and says, well, I know for a fact you don't have it, because you've smooth implants too. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, no, it sounds like there's a lot of pride and ego that's
Yes.
involved in this. And so that's why what you're doing is so important is
It's
that
like,
you're bringing
yeah.
awareness, yeah, to women so that they know what to ask. They know when they're getting filled with a load of BS, right? And
Yes.
they have ways to be able to go and find out the information because you've been there and now you are helping other women with that information. This is your breakthrough, right? Your
Yeah.
breakthrough was doing the education for yourself and becoming an advocate for yourself first. And now for other women, you are helping them in this process too. You know, what is one thing that you wish that you could go back and share with yourself before your first diagnosis with breast cancer?
That I knew about breast cancer,
Just anything that you would like to,
that I would
if
have
you could go
known.
and tell yourself from where you are now and what you know now,
Oh,
what would you go back and tell yourself before you got that first diagnosis?
um, I wish I would have been formed on breast implants. Um, that you would be beautiful and be better than who you are without implants. I would have been informed that I could get cancer with implants.
Yeah. Yeah. Being
I
more
would have
educated.
never, yep, I would have never gotten implants if I would have known, if he would have told me I could get another cancer. The first one was so devastating. Breast cancer was the worst devastation for me in my life. I felt so alone. I had a girl at work who I give so much credit to, Julie, that came and helped me constantly, um, and was there for me all the time. And was very hard for me. It's a lonely diagnosis,
Yeah.
breast cancer.
Yeah. So maybe have faith, question everything,
Question everything,
and trust yourself.
and to know to advocate for myself. If you don't question everything, they are just going to tell you what they're normally going to tell everybody else the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a little pattern. Okay, it's scripted
Mm.
and they have it memorized.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I also think that one of the things that as women and as a society is that we need to do a better job of helping females understand where their femininity comes from.
Mm-hmm.
That it has nothing to do with their body shape, has nothing to do with boobs.
Exactly.
It has everything to do with how you feel about yourself
Yep.
and how you allow other people to treat you.
And the funny thing is, I always wanted a breast reduction and hated my boobs. And so, why I let a plastic surgeon talk me into even getting breast implants is beyond me, because I was never even happy with my breasts when I had them. So, for me, it was just like, oh, okay, it's just ritual. Go ahead, get your breast implants. That's next up on the list. You get your mastectomy, get your breast implants, and you carry on.
You were
You
in
don't
a
really have,
very vulnerable place,
yes.
and that's why.
All you think about is breast cancer when you're diagnosed,
Yeah.
and you got to focus on everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So, where can the What Now tribe follow you? Where can they find you to be able to learn more information, maybe for themselves or maybe even for somebody that they love and care about that has breast implants and is not feeling well, or even if they are feeling well and they have breast implants, where can people find you?
Well, I post, my main page is on Facebook. So I would have them find me on Facebook
And where can they best find you there?
under Roxane Vermeland.
And that is with one X,
One X, one
one
N,
N.
and one E.
Yeah.
Roxane. V like in Victor, ER. M like in Mary, ELAN. D like in dog.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
Is there any final words that you would like to leave the audience with?
Yes, if you have breast implants and if you have the recalled Allergan breast implants, I highly advise you to get them out. If you have breast cancer, especially, do not take the advice of the FDA and keep them in. your chances are so great of getting this cancer if you keep those implants in your body. And they are not good. Breast implants are not good for over 10 years. A lot of you ladies have had them in for 10 to 20 years and just keep them in because your doctor said, you're fine. You don't need to do anything. And you feel fine, so you don't have to do anything. That's not the point. You can be developing this cancer with smooth or textured implants at any time. And do not let a doctor remove your implants without removing those capsules because this cancer develops in the capsules. And the only way to find out if you have the cancer is by testing the capsules that form around your implants with a test called CD30. And if your plastic surgeon will not remove the capsules and test for CD30, because it should be done on every single breast implant removal, then do not use him.
Great words there. Great words. Well, Roxane, thank you so much for being such an amazing, amazing guest today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And your episode is You're Your Own Breast Implant Cancer Advocate. What now? So, what now, tribe? I have a special ask for you. We have been highlighting the stories of women that have suffered with breast implant illness and now breast implant associated cancers for several weeks. And we would love for you to be able to help us raise awareness. So please help us by first listening, obviously, to these episodes. Go back and listen to all of them and then share them out. Please give some reviews on podcast reviews. And then make sure that you are sharing these episodes out with everyone that you know, because there is someone out there that is waiting for this information. They don't know the right questions to ask. They don't know that there are options, and they don't know the danger that they could potentially be in with their breast implants. I know that I didn't. I had mine for 21 years. And yeah, right, the same set for 21 years. And thank God when I had mine taken out and they were tested, everything came back negative. But there's women out there that aren't. And I know Roxane knows and believes that there will be women that die because they don't have this information. And I truly believe that too. And each one of you can help us by spreading these episodes around. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Roxane.
Oh, thank you for having me, Marcy.
You're very welcome.